Detroit has been painted as an urban wasteland, and in many ways it is. Russell Industrial Center stands as a 2.2 million square foot artifact to the dying automotive industry. Once home to the Henry Ford Manufacturing Company, it now houses more than 200 artists and craftsmen studios. For the price of $2 to $5 a square foot, these artists hope that their roles in the space will translate into economic benefits for the city. Don Perez is an architect and artist that works at Russell.
I think Russell is very unique for the fact of where it is, very old building, its history, a very important architect, Albert Kahn, who did this, what architects recognize as a very important figure in history of architecture. The fact that it looks kind of torn apart, or the character and the language from the outside, I think is attractive to a lot of people, even those who've never been here before. The fact that there's dynamic on the inside. So I think I knew pretty much from the beginning that it was a good place, but I can't see any other place like this. There are many places that could be like this.
Perez, like many other artists in Russell, is also inspired by the landscape of Detroit and the vision of what it can become.
But there I have four pieces, this two and two over there, that represent my desire to see Detroit be reused or used once again as a living quarters for residential venues. For example, this idea is represent of taking buildings in Detroit, abandoned buildings, and instead of taking them down, just attach new architecture, new conditions, new forms.
But revitalization through the arts is not just an artist's vision. Jody Sfager, the events liaison at Russell, did her dissertation on economic regeneration through the arts in London and found that for every £1 invested in the arts, an additional £3 were generated in ancillary businesses.
It made me start thinking about Detroit and how Detroit's going under this major change right now, and how the economy is down, and how, but we've got so many artists in this city that if we focus more on the arts, that we would be able to change the economy too here by doing something like what England does, where we invest in the arts.
Andrzej Sikora, a Polish immigrant working at Russell, remains optimistic about the potential of the arts to revitalize Detroit.
I see potential of changing economical situation because of art, because art can bring money from another sources. So if it's more money here, you start to spending money. When you spend money, start to be this, the wheel of fortune start to moving. And if it's money there, and other people say, oh, maybe I can see my opportunity. Maybe artists need some, donuts. So we start the company. Maybe they would like to have steak. Let's go build a restaurant. Not only live on cheap food and cheap sandwiches. So I think this way there can be this fame can create the same what happened with Motown, that the music brings a lot of money and people here.
About 10 years ago, downtown Detroit, actually not even as far as 10 years ago, like 7 years ago, the city of Detroit, when you walked around downtown, it was like 2 out of every 3 high-rises were boarded up. They were like abandoned. Nothing was being used. So, and then it was like a ghost town downtown. You'd never see anybody walking around. It wasn't like another city. It's like people would drive in for their suburbs, they'd park in their parking structures, they'd take the elevated, what are those called, the ramps over into their building, they'd work, they'd eat lunch in their building, and then they'd get back in their car and then they'd drive back to the suburbs.
In an effort to combat this trend, the city completed plans in 2004 for the Campus Martius Park located in downtown Detroit. There were arts and entertainment events that were planned for the park 7 days a week in hopes that people would use the park as a community and gathering space.
So the first year there'd be 20 people at every lunchtime, maybe 20 people. And then the second year that tripled. The third year, now it's in its 4th year. Last summer I had 7,000 people at my festival. And that was something every Thursday we'd have 1,000 people down in downtown, and you'd see people walking around all the time, and you'd see, it's the arts actually made a huge impact. It's completely changed the downtown. So now there's shops that are going in, retail things that are going in, where it was never there before, because nobody ever walked around before. But now people are walking, and the retail can be supportive. So, that's a perfect example of how you invest in the arts, how like it can cause a community to form where there was never a community before, and now we've got stuff going on in the downtown of Detroit.
With the automotive industry becoming obsolete, Detroit struggles to find a new economic model. Over 60,000 vacant lots sprawl out along the landscape. In a city that was built for 2 million people and now houses less than 1 million, abandoned buildings seem to outnumber those that are occupied. But with cheap rent and the opportunity for reinvention, artists, activists, and idealists have been increasingly immigrating into the city to rebuild Detroit.